Signed up.
You all see my my slide welcoming you today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I am Kim Laney. I'm your OLLI coordinator. Today's brown bag topic is spring and early summer Humboldt County walks and drives with Rees Hughes.
Yes.
I'm going to ask that you go ahead and mute yourself so that when the presentation is going, we don't have any distractions. So that right. OLLI at HSU is celebrating 15 years of lifelong learning on the North Coast. We have a great lineup of classes this spring, and we encourage you to visit our website to learn more. Throughout the year, we will continue to celebrate 15 years with many classes being offered at a low $15 fee for our members. If you're not a current member, we encourage you to sign up and help us reach our goal of 1,000 new and returning members before June 30th. Over the past year, OLLI has transitioned to offering all of our courses and discussion groups online so that our members are able to stay connected and remain safely at home. In addition to our brown bag presentations, another way to stay connected with OLLI at HSU is to attend the discussion group Let's Connect with Tracy Barnes-Priestley. All of our brown bag presentations are made possible because of the donations of Friends of OLLI. Thank you. Please help us to provide these excellent free community presentations by making a donation to OLLI at HSU today. Here's the contact information for OLLI, and the best way to get a hold of us is is to send us an email. I'll give you that information. And then quickly, I wanted to let you know before we get started that during busy times, we really appreciate it if you will sign up for classes at least 3 days in advance. That way we can get you your meeting links in a timely way. Following today's presentation, we will make the recording available on our website. Please navigate to the OLLI Brown Bag presentation page and find the link to the video archive to locate past presentations that are available. And I think we're ready to get started. If you haven't already, please mute yourself and keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. Rees is going to accept questions throughout the presentation. So if you want to ask questions, you can raise your hand. You can use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen. You can use the chat function, and we'll call on you to ask your question. So once again, thank you for staying connected with OLLI at HSU. And Jane, go ahead and introduce Rees. Sorry.
I'll be very happy to do that, and welcome to you all. We're almost over 100 now and growing, I think, at the moment. Rees is the author of Hiking Humboldt, 101 Shorter Day Hikes, Urban and Road Walks. He and his wife, Amy Uwicki, moved to the North Coast 34 years ago and fell in love with Humboldt County's wonderful blend of rugged coastline, redwood forests, oak woodlands, wild rivers, and beautiful mountains. Perhaps it takes a flatlander from Kansas to appreciate such a rich landscape. He worked in student affairs at HSU for nearly 25 years, and Amy and he have raised 2 loving daughters. He currently coordinates the local trail stewards group that helps maintain local trails, participates in Equity Arcata, pursuing his current concern for students suffering housing insecurity, and is a major OLLI contributor. So welcome, Rees. Go for it.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. All right. A big thank you to Kim and Jane and other OLLI volunteers who organized these lunches. I guess it's maybe a little bit of a misnomer to call them lunch because it's bring your own, whatever. And I also don't know why I really put a specific number on these hikes. 12 seems to be my magic number, but there are really going to be a number of additional ones that I'll talk about and drives in the course of this discussion. And as Kim noted, it will be recorded. And I would encourage you, if you are the proud owner of a Hiking Humboldt Volume 2, that you take it out and make notes as we go. And I'll try to remember to refer to some specific hike numbers in the volume. I'm not going to give you a page number because there's a slightly different pagination in the first and subsequent printings of the volume. So take notes and ask questions as we go. We'll do our best to try to get to them. I don't know, Kim, if there's a way that if people are distracted by the side view, if it obscures some of the information on the screen, that they can get rid of the pictures of some of us on the side. Do you know?
Yeah, that's certainly a functionality that you can do on your own device. You can make it so that you do it in view everything in a speaker view, so you'll see the slideshow and just Rees speaking. So really, Rees, it depends on how people have their own device.
Okay, all right. I don't know, many of you may recognize this first picture. It is, in fact, Bear River Road that goes off of Bear River Ridge, and it was a spring hike before COVID. A lot of the pictures you will not see masks on, and I often think about a year ago at this time, when was a year ago on the 9th of March that I gave a similar talk to this, and it was in fact the last time that OLLI gave had an in-person event for the last year. Who knew at that point that it would be the year it has been? What a year. I think as we've learned a lot about the outdoor or the lack of outdoor transmission of COVID, that we've really invaded the outdoors of Humboldt County, the parks and trails and beaches. Use has increased dramatically. And I think we've all come to appreciate these amazing resources that we have in Humboldt County. I read a study the other day that said 1/3 of all Americans do not live within a 10-minute drive of a park or a wild space. And I think if there's nothing else that we've come to appreciate is what resources we have here in Humboldt County. This has been our typical attire, and I want to talk briefly about what I think still makes sense in terms of guidelines for social distancing while walking. Many OLLI members have at least had one shot. That's great, but I think masks and social distancing remain important because at this point we really don't know exactly about the ability of somebody who's been vaccinated about carrying the virus. So you may still transmit it to others. So I'm advocating at this point that you still wear a mask. If you're with a small group, which is also something that I encourage, that especially if you're not confident that everybody in the group has been fully vaccinated and the requisite 14 days have passed, that you continue to wear a mask. But probably most important, and this relates to things like carpooling or ride sharing of some sort. I think that is something that makes sense to continue to avoid any extended periods of time where you're exposed to people outside your pod in a closed environment. And clearly, as we learn more about variants, I think we'll continue to make adjustments accordingly. So while the vaccines have been a game changer, there's no doubt, it's important to maintain some level of cautiousness about the COVID-19. Well, this picture is another wonderful spring picture, and this was taken on a walk in the Lions Ranch area on Coyote Creek. I'll talk about this a little later, but it's wonderful to see the spring grasses and trees, the oak trees start to bud out like this. As I mentioned before, Humboldt County is such a wonderful, wonderful resource, a place to be. And I want to really reinforce what the resources are. We have 4,000 square miles, which is bigger than Rhode Island and Delaware combined. We have everything from 110 miles of wonderful coastline, the most of any California county, to the high point in the county, which is 7,000 feet at Salmon Mountain, and a number of other areas that are well over 5,000, from Horse Mountain to the Lassix and other areas within the county. We've got oak woodlands and inland rivers, all with great road access on the 1,300 miles of paved and unpaved public roads that exist in Humboldt County. It's an amazing resource. And then, of course, we also have 8 wonderful state parks to enjoy, and 1 national park, in addition to all the county and city parks. So lots and lots of amazing resources. I always show this slide. This is up on Berta Road. This is John Palmquist. I love the messaging here. But I also wanted to say there are a number of wonderful hikes that I'm not going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about the Waterfront Trail in Eureka, the Hickshari Trail, the Bay Trail North. I'm not going to talk about the Hammond Trail, Patrick's Point, Arcata, or the Sunny Brae Forest. And I'm not going to include urban walks this time. And it's not that these aren't wonderful spring walks. It's really that I wanted to focus on things that you might not otherwise think about. Those are ones that are mostly on everybody's mind. And so I encourage you to keep those on your list. But we're going to talk today about others. The first one I want to talk about and highlight, it's probably fairly familiar to most of you, but it's the Humboldt Wildlife Refuge. And I really want to highlight 2 walks in this area. And this is a wonderful sort of spring walk, the first one in particular. If you follow my cursor, it's from the Visitor Center, which is actually currently closed, but there are resources out there that are adequate. It's a 1.75 mile loop walk. It is flat, and it is basically accessible to state park standards. So it is hard packed and often windy, but it is an accessible trail. One of the virtues of this particular walk is its access to the Aleutian cackling geese. And this is a sort of a wonderful feel-good story that started with a not such a feel-good story back in 1967 when they were declared endangered. And then a local biologist, some of you may have known, Paul Springer, he took the lead in this project and determined that there were islands in the Aleutians where the Aleutian cackling geese did their breeding, served as rookeries, and were being basically exterminated by Arctic foxes, which had been placed on these islands by many years ago, back in the 1800s, by Russian furriers who thought, well, what better place to have a captive population with ready-made food supply. So they started in 1967 removing the foxes, and by 2001, the populations had recovered so much that they were taken off the endangered species list and now number well over 140,000. While many of them winter here, they leave about the middle of April to return to the Aleutians for their breeding process. But what it provides us is this great opportunity for the fly-offs in March and in early part of April. I'll talk about those in a moment. That is a unique opportunity. The other walk I want to mention while I have it, if you follow my cursor, is a 1.5 mile walk. And it looks a little like this. I'll come back to this in a moment. It's basically the Hookton Slough Walk. And this was my wife Amy and I out there on a recent windy, cold day, but it was still a pleasant walk. And we saw not this particular otter, but I must say about every time I've been out there, we've seen river otters, which is a wonderful wildlife sighting. Just want to mention that this is the site of where the Hookton Slough Wharf used to be in the mid 1800s. These shallow draft boats were used here because the road around Humboldt Bay in the winter was basically impassable. So this was the way that both people and supplies and resources would get to Eureka and out to the larger world. There's sort of an interesting walk that you can do in minus tides, and there will be some minus tides that are coming up on the very south side of the bay. So this is, I'll flash back to my map. So this is the old levee. This is the first 1.5 miles, and it's flat. But in minus tide environments, you can actually walk out onto this area of the beach, which looks something like you see me here in this picture. It's one of the only places around Humboldt Bay where there is a sandy bottom. And it's not that broad, but it's broad enough in minus tide environments. You want to make sure that the tide is minus or low enough, because as you can see here, the shoreline there is very difficult to navigate. So if you have to make an emergency exit, you're going to get scratched up and you're going to be scrambling through a thicket, indeed. And this goes out as far as the site of the old Southport Landing, which in the 1870s was a 1/2 mile long wharf that was built by Charles Henley. And Charles Henley's house is the Southport Landing house here that's actually on private property, so it's not accessible. For a while it was a B&B. It's not currently. But this house dates from those 1870s period and was the Henley's house that went along with the landing itself. There was a storage facility that was removed about 10 years ago on that site as well. The Aleutian cackling geese, and this is where I want to highlight the fly-off options. So on Saturdays and Sundays in March, the entrance gate to the wildlife preserve will be open a 1/2 hour before sunrise to allow you to come and watch the fly-off. This is when the Aleutian cackling geese in the tens of thousands will leave from their overnight spots and head out to local pastures and fields for feeding throughout the day. And while the visitor center and the bathrooms are closed, they have a porta potty. You still can have access to the trail and go out and watch this. It's well worth it if you haven't done it. And once daylight savings time comes, it's a little easier maybe to get out there early. And if you have questions, take note of the number here on the screen, 733-5406. And a couple of pictures of what it looks like. It's really, this doesn't do it justice, but it's really a worthy sight. All right, number 11. This is a new, as of October, option for people to experience Samoa Peninsula. And it's a wonderful walking area called the Samoa Dunes and Wetlands, or the Samoa Wetlands and Dunes. And it is in the hands of the Friends of the Dunes organization, which holds this 357-acre parcel at this point, but it is accessible and open to the public. It has these big, wonderful parabolic dunes. It has wonderful open forest, looking like this, some big old Douglas fir in here, as well as coastal pine and Sitka spruce. This is a map, and I'll talk about this in a moment, of this facility, and just to help you orient yourself. This is 255. This is the bridge over to Eureka. So this, in fact, right over here where my cursor is roughly the location of the Samoa Cookhouse. And this is Cookhouse Road right here. And one of the access points that some of the guided walks that you can use to access this parcel begin in this area. So this is where they have a small parking lot here. My own personal preference, and I'll show you another map in a moment, is to enter from the north, from the Manila Community Center side, and walk the Waterline Trail into the property. Now, one of the challenges of this property, the yellow lines here which mark existing trails, is that there is no signage. And there are, in fact, more trails than are noted here on the map. So I'm going to show you next how to maybe download an app that will give you a chance to find your way around this parcel. Take special note of what I've listed here. If you have a smartphone, I very much would encourage you to download the free Avenza app. Once you have the Avenza app on your smartphone, then you would go to the Friends of the Dune website, and they have these instructions on the Friends of the Dunes website. You'll need to search for Samoa Wetlands and Dunes. They have these instructions. You'll download the map, and what Avenza does is that will locate you with GPS on that map. So once you are on the property, you can see where you are on the trails by using the Avenza feature, and the GPS location will locate you on the map with a little blue dot. So it will allow you to sort of minimize the amount of time you spend finding your way around. This is a Menzies wallflower, Humboldt Bay wallflower, I should say. The Humboldt Bay wallflower is in beautiful bloom right now. I was out there actually just last week, and there were lots of wallflowers to be seen. And they're a small, maybe 6 to 8 inch tall plant with these wonderful yellow blooms. The Humboldt Bay wallflower is endangered, and so it's a wonderful chance to see them in bloom in the spring for the next couple of weeks. All right, just because I highlighted the Samoa Dunes and Wetlands, I don't want to not encourage you to head out to other parts of the peninsula. And increasingly, we have wonderful resources throughout the length of the peninsula, beginning on the north with the Landfire Dunes. There are guided walks available, and that's on the north side of my map here, off of the map. There are guided walks available through the Friends of the Dunes. And once you've taken a guided walk and sort of had their clearance, it is possible to have access on your own without going on a docent-led walk. Then the next, as we go south, is the Malel North Dunes area. And it's this area with the high dunes, the high parabolic dunes, the otherworldly dunes that are a part of this wonderful complex. And then it also includes this road access, which gets you into the parking lot on the very north end, right on the Mad River Slough. And this parking lot is only available Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday until sunset. And this is the old Hammond Railroad trail, and it goes all the way out to a dead end where you can sort of see some of the abutments that were available and supported the railroad on through the bottoms. So in this area, dogs and horses are not allowed. But in Malel South, which is this area, this parking lot is available 7 days a week. It's also available for dogs and horses. And it has its own trail complex. And then the next one to the south is Friends of the Dunes through the Nature Center, which also allows dogs and has its own complex of trails. And then the next one is the Manila Community Center, which has wonderful parking and a set of trails, but it's from here that I like to get access to the Samoa Dunes and Wetlands property. This, as I'll show you in my next slide, it'll highlight this, is one of my favorite walks. This is about a 5-mile walk starting at the Nature Center, going out to the coast, walking north all the way up to Malel North and over to the slough and coming back all the way to Malel South and then back into the waterline trail and then up back returning to the Nature Center. It can be a little hard to find and it's worth, but it is worth definitely going up, and you may have to go up to the dunes to sort of spot yourself, up to the foreshore to spot yourself a little bit to make this happen, but it's well worth the walk. Okay, let's move on. Oh, yeah, I did want to mention that on January 19th of this year, the Landfire and the Malel Dunes were designated as one of 3 new national natural landmarks, and that joins about 600 other nationwide national natural landmarks. But in talking with Mike Cipra, he said that after this designation occurred, that there's been a huge increase in the number of inquiries about these spaces. So many from out of the area. So it's sort of put them on the map. I have mixed feelings about that. Obviously, I love it. On the one hand, I love going to visit these kind of places elsewhere, but it may attract an influx of visitors to our area. This is a view from Malel North, from some of the high dunes areas. That's high tide and Mad River Slough, looking to the east. All right, time to move on. Number 10, we'll never get done at this rate. This is a series of wonderful drives. I really want to encourage you to think about, on one of these beautiful spring days, to get out to maybe take the Dyerville Loop Road, or to go up to Kneeland and do the Bridgeville Loop. And we'll talk about these two. And then the other one will be to go out to the Lost Coast, that I'll talk about a little bit later. This view, I should say, is from the Dyerville Loop Road coming down towards Fort Seward itself in the south part of the county. So this is a rough map of that route. It is 143 miles. If you do something like this, allocate yourself the whole day, take a picnic, plan to go slowly and enjoy. It's not a fast drive. And I recommend heading from Eureka, going out to Bridgeville on 36, and then taking the road down to Blocksburg. And this road is an old stage road, one of several in this that are part of this trip, going out to the community of Blocksburg. I should mention that Blocksburg, the post office here, dates from 1877. And then on around Fort Seward itself, I've got a couple of pictures I'll show you of that area. The fort, I have a walk in the book. I've been forgetting to mention those. I apologize for that. Should say while I'm at it, the Landfire Dunes walks are hike number 31, 32, 33, that area. This one, Fort Seward walk, is hike number 99 in the book. And I also mentioned in there the Dyerville Loop Road, that from the top, the Fort Seward Road down to the Eel River, which is at Fort Seward, is all downhill or all uphill. Dramatic as it is, you may not want to do it that way. And then if you go along some of the upper part of the Dyerville Loop Road from the intersection with the Fort Seward Road, that's a wonderful view looking down in the main stem of the Eel on the east side and to the South Fork on the west side. Then you continue on the Dyerville Loop Road all the way down. You can go out here to the site of Camp Grant, Campground Flat, and around to the Dyerville Flats area, and then back onto 101, and you'll breathe a sigh of relief when you get to 101 and head north to home. But it is an amazing day-long experience. And this is the map of the Fort Seward. If you can see closely, it's all downhill crossing contours down to the old side of the Fort Seward Railroad Depot. It's an unpaved road. You can see it here on a walk. It's there are no amenities, but it is a spectacular spring and fall walk and or drive. This is all part of a Fort Seward Ranch, which is a 27,000 acre ranch, and it's open range on most of both sides of the road here. Here's the old railroad depot in the town of Fort Seward, and sort of a rather sad reminder of the native peoples that lived in this area, the Lassic people that whose story is a very sad story of extermination, and one of that typified our treatment of native people throughout Humboldt County. And this is another view of the road this is the Fort Seward Road going down to the main stem of the Eel. And again, another springtime shot. So I know it says that you could do it in a half-day loop drive, but don't do that. Plan the whole day. All right, the Kneeland to Bridgeville Road. This is another great spring drive, shorter than the other one. This one could arguably be done in a half day, but I certainly would encourage you again to sort of take a full day and allocate some time along the way to walk the Mountain View Road. And I want to thank Mark Larson here. Mark has helped upgrade a lot of my images with some of his beautiful images. This is taken from Mountain View Road. Actually, if you have really sharp eyes, right there above the D in Bridgeville would be the site of Old Iaqua Lookout, which is not publicly accessible anymore, but it gives you a sense of what this area is all about. The Kneeland Airport provides a great parking spot, and you're just about 3/4 of a mile east of Kneeland Road from the top. And then Mountain View Road is a nice walk. This is Ashfield Butte here, that the road goes around the north side of that. And that one is hike number 83 in the book. So here's my road schema for that road, and it says 91 miles basically. If you take the road from Eureka up to Kneeland, and then here's the location of the Mountain View Road, and down through Iaqua Creek, and this is the Iaqua Butte Lookout area, and down to Bridgeville, and then back on 36. Oh, and the next one I'm going to talk about is another nice road that goes from this area called Redwood House Road, and I like the upper part. It does connect with 36 down low, but I don't recommend that. And actually, there's a nice, not a bad walk at the top of this road between Kneeland and Bridgeville in this area, a little bit to the south of the Redwood House Road intersection. All right, that road is about a 91-mile road, and it's can be done in half a day, but I encourage you to take longer. This again is another view of the Mountain View Road. Again, a springtime walk, sort of late spring when the grasses are starting to turn. And it can also be a wonderful refuge from once we get into fog season in the late spring, early summer. Oftentimes it can be 75 degrees and shirt sleeves when it feels like winter down on the coast. Again, thanks to Mark Larson for this image. And this is my map of Redwood House Road, which is an unpaved road. It looks a lot like this. You can walk basically, I sort of find from near the Redwood House Road, and this road's in the book too, hike number 98, maybe a half mile or so from the intersection, west from the intersection with the Bridgeville Kneeland Road are some pullouts where you can park and walk this road. It is a public road. You may stop and be questioned because it's ranch land and private land on both sides. Again, open range. And I found that if I just explain why I'm there, and they're just fine with that. And it'll generally be a rancher with a quad that will come up and ask you that question. But it is a county road. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about some low tide walks, because we do have some wonderful low tides coming up in May, some minus tides in May and in June. And I've even written down some of the tide levels that I'll show you in a moment. This is Fleener Creek. This is south of Centerville Beach, and a wonderful loop walk that I'll mention. I'll also talk about Huda Point to Moonstone and the mouth of the Mattole to Punta Gorda. So the first one I'll mention is Huda Point to Moonstone. This is a summer low tide walk. Every year, the amount of sand deposition and the replacement of the sand changes, so it changes the look and feel of this beach. And it is possible that it won't send the sand back in the summer, so you may want to take your water shoes if necessary. And it also depends on where the mouth of Little River is. But it is a wonderful, wonderful low tide walk. So there is a portable toilet at Moonstone, and parking there, parking up at Camel Rock, both options. You could do it as a loop. And this is a view from Huda Point. I just think it's honestly one of my favorite. You can see here the avenue that you would walk. Sometimes the sand is scoured out more, and there's more rock that appears along the beach here. The later in the summer, the more sand there tends to be, but it's a gradual restoration process. So I would encourage you to take your tide table, but here are some of the upcoming minus tides that happen at decent hours. And I'll take a moment here to take a drink of water, and you might want to jot down some of the dates anyway. And this is for basically Trinidad. Centerville Beach is very similar to this. Even down at the mouth of the Mattole would be similar. So these minus tides happen at early morning in the day, but actually a lot of the minus tides are far earlier than this. So those are options that you might consider in May and June. So here is my route recommendation from Huda Point, parking at Huda Point, and making your way down the precipitous stairways, which is a reason to also consider parking at Moonstone Beach and walking north up during the low tide level and around Huda Point and back. But you can also park at Huda Point and go down and along the low tide mark. This is Camel Rock out here, and this is, I'm actually not sure what the name of this rock is. I have to admit that my family has called it Butt Crack Rock because on the west side in low tide is a cave, and one worth exploring in certain low tide conditions. And the low tide is wonderful all the way down, and then you can make it a loop by walking scenic back past the side of the old Hollywood location, which is old tourist trap when this was the main north-south 101 thoroughfare. One of my other favorite low tide walks is Centerville Beach. This is hike number 53 in the book. Huda Point to Moonstone was hike number 16 in the book. One of the beauties of this particular hike is that it combines so many interesting things. There are wonderful fossils to be found. There are these sea scallops that date from 1 to 2 million years ago along the consolidated mud cliffs at the end here, down here at this part of this walk. There's the old listening post that was up on the top of the bluff up in this area. From 1958 to 1993, there were about 280 personnel there. There's an artifact of the Cold War. They were listening for Russian subs. And then as long from the late 1870s to as late as 1891 until the Wildcat was completed, this was a stage route in low tide environments where they would use this as a roadway from Oil Creek, which is farther down and along the coastline here on the way to Petrolia and Point South. So it's got some interesting history. It's a beautiful walk, and especially in the summer when the tides are low. Here's another view. In particular low tide times, you can go past Fleener Creek down to Guthrie Creek, and I think next is a map. Nope, this is again my picture of Fleener Creek. Here we go. From the parking lot at Centerville Beach, it's about a leisurely 2.5 mile walk to the south. Again, minus tides, really got to be conscious of tides and surf conditions. That's my disclaimer in all of this. You can come up Fleener Creek to Lookout Point. There's another parking area here. The BLM has put in some trails over here to the site of the old listening post, which has been dismantled, and in its place is a delightful picnic area. And then I will take the road back down carefully to the parking area here, and it makes for a nice 2.8 mile loop. But in the summer, in really low tide conditions, you can continue to go past another typically no pass, which is actually in this area all the way down to Guthrie Creek, which is also accessible by the access road, the Centerville Beach Road, all the way down here. That's another walk in the book as well. And in certain conditions, like last summer, we were able to go another 3/4 mile farther south in low tide, in a minus tide situation. So that's certainly one walk to keep on your list. Here's what it looks like at the very south end of that whole entire walk. So we are probably here about 3.5 miles from the parking lot at Centerville Beach, walking the beach the whole way. An alternative that I like to mention is Pool Road, and I should have had the hike number at hand. Pool Road is near the end. It's hike number 55. It's near the not far from the entrance in the parking area at Centerville Beach itself, and it goes up above Centerville Beach with a nice view. If you're there and the tide's too high, and you need to go and have a jonesing for a view, it's a county road again, despite this sign, which is at the front end of the road. That it is a county road. Just be considerate when you park, that you park as close to the edge of the road as possible. But it has wonderful views out over the mouth of the Eel River up towards Table Bluff and that area. All right, the third third low tide area that I want to highlight is from the mouth of the Mattole River, which is right here where my cursor is, and on south for about 2.5, 2.8 miles to the Punta Gorda and the old Punta Gorda Lighthouse. This is hike number 78 in the book. It has harder and more challenging options. This picture is actually taken from Windy Point, which obviously involves elevation gain and is aptly named, I must say, but the views are absolutely to die for. I mean, you can see how expansive the views are. This was taken in August. In September, if you can imagine, the views are all green and green grass. And this is the walkway. Again, you have to be somewhat cognizant of tides all the way out to the side of the old lighthouse. I mentioned this was hike 78. It is hike 78. This is the mouth of 4 Mile Creek here. And at the base of the lighthouse is one of, I think, the wildlife highlights in all of Humboldt County is an elephant seal colony. And definitely treat them with care. They're massive creatures. The males are massive creatures and very unpredictable, look like they are asleep lots of times, but they are not. And it is an amazing and well worth the walk out. So this is the couple of inn holdings at 4 Mile Creek on the upper left photo. Again, the lighthouse. This is the walk, primitive walk up to Kooski Peak, which is for a hike discussion about much longer walks than I'm giving you. And so here's the walk, the mouth of the Mattole, down south to Punta Gorda, passing this is the area where you need to have a relatively low tide to get past comfortably. There's a ford across 4 Mile Creek, which is typically a step across, but in high water times, it can be a little more difficult, and down to Punta Gorda Lighthouse. The Windy Point option. So this is about 3.5 miles one way. If you add in the Windy Point option, which is all uphill and all downhill in the Prosper Ridge Road, it's the total of about 8 mile round trip. I wanted to include another drive, as I mentioned here. This is a wonderful drive around the Lost Coast. It's 128 miles. Again, I encourage you to take and allocate a full day for this. I would typically go this direction to go to Ferndale and up the Wildcat. This is a view here from high parts of the Wildcat. Always reminds me of Ireland or Wales or someplace like that, the windswept moors of Scotland. And then you head around to the Wildcat and the Wall itself and the beachside areas of that part of this drive, and then into Petrolia. And here's the Mattole River. There are some walks around Petrolia as well. And then on through this public road, but not in very good condition. But you can make it on the way around and come down on the Mattole Road through Bull Creek out to 101 and back. So wonderful redwoods, well worth the stop here, walks along here, walks in Petrolia, get out of your car up here, all sorts of options that are available that make it a full day journey. Number 8, or it's probably about number 25 at this point, but the Ocean Ranch Table Bluff option. This is hike number 51 in the book. I just heard recently, actually, that after I made this presentation, that Fish and Wildlife announced that they are going to be doing some major work beginning this summer in this area, and they're going to be putting in a kayak access to the sloughs, I think retooling the walking options in this area. So right now, and I can say that when spring comes, there's lots of sort of flowers in this meadow area that are in this view. It's an old ranch area. So there are ranch roads that you walk from a parking area up at the top of this road. Here's the parking area, the Ocean Ranch unit on your way out to Table Bluff, and the old ranch facilities. This is to the McNulty Slough. And right now there's a little bit of they've created a little bit more of an obstacle here to get out to the road that goes along and down to the mouth of the Eel. But this can be done as a loop up to Table Bluff here. And the BLM has created a nice little walking area around the old lighthouse location. This whole loop, is just 2.7 miles. So it's not a terribly long route to take. Oops, not yet. This gives you a couple of features of this area. One is from the top of Table Bluff, it's a very, very popular places for hang gliding. Almost always see people out there in the spring, which is a great time for hang gliding. And this is an aerial view, not from the top of Table Bluff, out to the sloughs. This is the South Bay. This is Table Bluff itself. And this is a picture of the old lighthouse, which became the Lighthouse Ranch. And now none of this is available anymore except for the walking paths out here. And then some of the kinds of wildflowers that you tend to see, the wild radish, the wild mustard along the foreshore. Number 7, Lions Ranch at Schoolhouse Peak. This one is hike number 9. This is the Lions Ranch option. I would love to be able to tell you that the lupin will be out at the end of April, early part of May. Keep your ears peeled, watch for Facebook posts of people that are seeing lupin. It seems to be not something that happens every year. Every couple of years we get a wonderful lupin bloom. But if there is an alternative second prize, it's these kind of views, which are absolutely wonderful. This is from Schoolhouse Peak itself, looking to the north. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Coyote Creek walk. And that's the road that comes up here is from Coyote Creek up to the main road that goes on to Wichipec. This is the main Bald Hills road that goes on to Wichipec, looking to the east from Schoolhouse Peak. But when the lupin's out, this is just absolutely to die for and a wonderful road trip to take up to see. And it wouldn't be until the end of April, early part of May, that the lupin are likely to be out in full force. So no dogs, it's national park country. There are several options starting from this parking area, which is the Lions Ranch parking area. This is 17 miles east of Orick on the Bald Hills Road through the national park for the most part. Out here on Bald Hills Road, you come here and park on the Lions Ranch access road. One of my personal walk, and the walk I highlight again is hike 9 in the book, is to walk down to the old side of the sheep shed. Then you contour along from there and rejoin the main route into Lions Ranch and the old barn and outbuilding here. I've got some pictures I'll show you in a second. And then back to, that's about a 4.5, 5 mile walk. It's those of you that have any interest in wildlife like bear, this is a great location to spot bear, and they are pretty apprehensive of you. This whole area is thick with bears. It also is a place where you can see elk, and I've seen elk several times when I've been out here. The second option is to come down and take this road from the sheep shed, you go all the way around and you go up, and I call this the Coyote Creek option. This is about an 8-mile walk. And here's along, I'm sorry, here to the main Bald Hills Road, up to the lookout. And from the back of the lookout, you can come down on a faintly marked trail on Skookum Prairie Road, back to Bald Hills Road and back that way. So there are 3 wonderful options. Option 1, Lions Ranch. Option 2, longer, 8 miles, Coyote Creek around. Option 3, Schoolhouse Peak from here down and around Skookum Prairie. My cat's getting in the business here. And around Bald Hills Road, and or combinations of all those 3. Here's a view. This view that Mark has provided is of the barn on Lions Ranch, the old outbuildings of Lions Ranch, and the road here on the right side with Sidney Larson, on the right side going down towards that main part of the trail. Iris are thick up there, and they are much more reliable. Again, about that same time of the year, typically end of April, early part of May. And there's the Coyote Creek Loop, that road going back up towards the Bald Hills Road. Okay, number 6. I think that a lot of people don't think of the Botanical Garden, but when you think of spring and early summer as a place to go for a leisurely walk, there's no place better. So you have a couple of hours, go to the Botanical Garden at CR, on the north side of CR there. They have regular hours. Typically, they are closed Mondays and Tuesdays, so Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 4. It is a fee-based admission, $7 for seniors 60 and above. You can get a decent 2.5-mile walk through the garden. And I must say that there are some spectacular blooms, like these dogwood here. Has a nice stretch that is wheelchair accessible. It's paved. It's not nearly as long, but it's a wonderful place to take a friend or a family member who may be wheelchair bound. And when the rhodies and azaleas are out, which again starts in April in earnest through May and often the early part of June, and it is well worth going out to see. Okay, number 5. Redwoods. I'm not going to talk about the range of redwood options. I'm really going to highlight one. The best trillium. Trillium are starting to happen now, slowly. Seen a couple. But by late this month and into May, even into late April, into May, there are some wonderful places to go see trillium. My personal favorite is to go on the West Ridge Trail in Redwood National Park, Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, which is basically from near the Prairie Creek Redwoods Visitor Center up on the West Ridge and down Zigzag Trail and back around on the Prairie Creek Trail. It's a 5-mile loop, but that West Ridge Trail is thick with trillium, just amazing. There are other easier options, ones that you can certainly go see trillium, but that's the one I wanted to highlight today. And again, with photo credit to Mark Larson for, if you need to be inspired to go out and see trillium, when they are in droves, they are spectacular, and they come in lots of colors, shapes, sort of shapes and sizes and forms, and they really are wonderful. One of my other favorites that always makes my list of walks, and this works both as a drive and as a walk, is Bear River Ridge. This is hike number 60 in the book. There are superb views both ways. It can be windy. This is basically the area that was targeted for the ill-fated wind project. There are no amenities. Again, it's private road all the way along. It's about a 10-mile stretch here. If you make it as a drive, you come up from on the north side, you're going to come up from Ferndale, and on the south side, you come up Monument Road from Rio Dell. And you can also come up here and park in the middle at Bear River Ridge. This is Bear River Ridge at Bear River Road that goes down to the old Mattole Road down there. So let's see, it is a spectacular view, and I've got some pictures here to prove it. I'm sorry, I was disoriented here. This is Upper Bear River Road. This is the 10-mile length of this. This is the Mattole Road coming up from Ferndale. This is the Monument Road coming up from Rio Dell. And then this is the Upper Bear River Road, which is the very first picture I showed in this whole slideshow. I'm also going to mention Seth Kinman, which I always mention, and he has a pond in his name, which was the site of his homestead back in the 1850s. Thanks to Mark. This is a view from Bear River Ridge Road, a wonderful view out over the hills and Bear River Valley itself. Again, sort of the road, what the road looks like. It's private on both sides, open range on both sides, but it is a public road. It is a public road. You just need to be conscious and thoughtful in terms of where you choose to park by parking off to the side so you're not blocking anything, making sure you're not blocking access roads. And if anybody stops to ask you, that you just explain who you are. And this is a view from near the Monument Road intersection down over Scotia and Rio Dell. And here's a picture of Seth Kinman, rather notorious figure in our past, both for his mixed relationship with Native peoples and his clearly awful relationship with grizzlies and elk. He made this chair out of bear, and he made similar ones out of elk horns that he presented to several presidents and became, along with his son, sort of very, very flamboyant creatures that visited some of the, and scandalized, I suspect, people in Washington and New York as these images from woodsmen and frontiersmen from the West. He ended up owning a saloon in the Table Bluff area that still exists today, and he's buried along with Carlin, his son, pictured here in Table Bluff Cemetery. I also always love to mention, and this is for a little later in the spring, this is sort of a May and maybe even early June time period, to head up to Cold Springs Wander near Horse Mountain. And lots of wonderful, sort of more high wildflowers, a whole new set of wildflowers. The local California Native Plant Society often will lead trips up to this particular area in Cold Springs. This is an image of split rock here, which is the dominant feature in the Cold Springs Wonder. And also botany classes from HSU go up here to scan for wildflowers. And this is a fall view, but it's actually this is a spring view with just the trees budding out here, and again from the upper part of Cold Springs. The reality is that Cold Springs, and it's hike number 86 in your book, I really call it a wonder. I think you need to go up prepared to wander around and using a set of parameters to make sure that you have a sense of where you are, because there are no marked trails. It's become increasingly popular with rock climbers who use split rock as a source for rock climbing. And I noticed the last time I was up here that they had put in lots of pitons and permanent placements for rock climbers. But it is definitely a wonderful place with, on the north side, this natural fin. On the east side, if you hit Forest Service 1, you've gone too far. There's a Cold Spring Meadow on the south side, and then a quick drop off that you saw in the earlier pictures on the west side. So it's a wonderful place to plan to go to explore. A couple of azalea options that I wanted to highlight. Two in particular. And this is easy drives from here. One is the Azalea State Nature Preserve in McKinleyville, the northern part of McKinleyville. It's day use only. There are two very short little walks. One is about 7/10 of a mile long. One's about 5/10 of a mile long. And there's a parking lot in the middle off of Azalea Avenue, but it has the picture, the prior picture, this was taken there. This is taken there, the path, as you can see. There are no dogs permitted, it's only day use, but it is so accessible. Well worth a visit, probably more towards the middle to the end of May, early part of June. Then there is the Azalea Preserve that's up off of Kane Road, north of Big Lagoon. And there is a very primitive parking area for a couple of cars here, and then a very short walk around the preserve itself from that parking area. You can also walk Kane Road, which is hike number 12 in my book, and the earlier one in McKinleyville is hike number 20.
Hey, Rees, it's
Yeah.
Kim.
Yeah, Kim.
There's one question in the chat that I got. It goes back a couple of slides, but the question is, where is Seth Kinman's old saloon, and can you walk to it?
You can drive by, you can walk to it too. It's on Table Bluff itself. Now, to give you the crossroads, it's you know, I don't remember the precise crossroads. I would refer you to Jerry Rody's Both Sides of the Bluff. It's talked about at some length in there, as is Seth Kinman himself, and that would be what I would encourage you to refer to.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, I wanted to talk about this one as an unusual and I think soon to happen walk. I called yesterday just to find out how soon. This is the Canopy Walk at Sequoia Park Zoo. This is on latest notice, which was as of yesterday. I called and they said it's not going to open. They don't have a specific date at this point, but it will not be open until early April at the soonest. And this is about a quarter of a mile long walk. Let's see, I think I have a little bit more information. It is at its maximum height is about 100 feet off the ground. It is partially ADA accessible. It's available through the Sequoia Park Zoo, and at least for now, it will be included for free as a part of your general admission into Sequoia Park Zoo, which is a delightful local resource and wonderful option for experiencing the redwoods from a different perspective. Now, I think it's a bit of a misnomer to call it a true canopy walk, but that's a discussion for a different time. They have this adventure leg, which you can see here, which is intended to move in the wind. It's not the ADA accessible part. I should say too, as I said, you have to pay to get in. Adults $10, seniors $7. It's closed Mondays, but open Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 5. And this is not likely to be available until April or early May, but they haven't given a specific date. You can go and see it. It's virtually done. And I think they're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Now, I've admitted others that are wonderful. The Freshwater Farms Nature Reserve has a wonderful 3/4 mile walk that goes along Freshwater Slough. It's better a little bit later when the soil has dried out some, but it's a wonderful 3/4 mile one-way walk. Consider taking an evening walk around Potawat Village, another wonderful option. For those of you that are sort of adventurous, I have this walk in the book as well, going from Needle Rock in the Sinkyone down to Bear Harbor. The drive to Maple Creek, the Maple Creek to Corbell to Butler Valley Loop is another option. I also think considering the north-south, sort of the south side walk on the Elk River Trail, which is not in the book. It has come out since I put the book together. It's summer and fall only, but it's sort of a neat way to see Elk River and see some of the old remnants of the logging operations in that area. This picture is of the main stem of the Eel River, south on the road as you go south through Avenue of the Giants. And I can give you a specific walk number here by looking that up. It is hike number 66, the High Rock Walk, and it's not a terribly long walk. And I usually pitch urban walks, but they're still good, but I'm not doing it this time. And I always pitch Lax Creek, which is another one of my favorites, especially for May, wonderful spring days in May. You see the bear print here. Pine Ridge, the Pine Ridge option has wonderful views and increasingly involved mountain bike trails, but it's also good for hiking. And the Beaver Ridge option on the other side has also good hiking trails and are not used as often by mountain bikers. And my final thoughts before, if there are any questions, I want to really point you to the 5th annual Trail Summit, which will happen on National Trails Day, June 5th this year. It'll be virtual again and hosted and sponsored by the Humboldt Trails Council. It'll all be virtual, as I said, so keep your eyes open for updates then on local trails. The McKay Community Forest is coming soon. We're hoping that it will become more accessible to the public very soon. There's been a little bit of a snafu with one of the inn holdings there, but it was coming along. Construction is more than likely to begin 2022 for the final 4 miles of the Humboldt Bay Trail. I always pitch the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund, which a number of you have been donors to, and that's much appreciated. And it's a community way of showing our love, showing our support for ultimately the maintaining the 14 miles of the Humboldt Bay Trail and some of the ancillary trails that will be connected to that particular sort of backbone trail of the Humboldt Trails Network. The new half-mile length of the Annie and Mary Trail in Blue Lake is a Class 1 trail which works for wheelchairs, totally accessible from downtown Blue Lake, the museum area, out towards the casino. Definitely worth an easy walk, and combine it with the Levee Walk and the Industrial Park Walk in the book. And then there has been good news regarding the proposed 3-mile extension of the trail from the Arcata Skate Park to Pump Station number 1 on the Mad River, which will basically be an extension of the Humboldt Bay Trail. And it's definitely something that I really encourage you to start getting excited about, because that construction money has been made available up to about $4 million. And it'll be a while before it happens, as we've learned with the Bay Trail, but it will be one of those things that happens in our future. And my last pitch are volunteer trail stewards. And it's a group I'm involved in a number of locations locally. You can get involved at the monthly work days through humtrails.org for details, and join us. It's a wonderful community effort to sort of do volunteer maintenance, construction, maintaining other kinds of things on the various trails in our community. Well, I think that is my last slide beyond this one, which is my inspirational roadie slide. And if there's anybody that hasn't bid us adieu at this point and has questions, I'm happy to try to respond to questions. I will stop my sharing here. I think we've dropped a lot of people.
Oh, not too many, a few, but not too many. Lots of nice compliments in the chat, lots of thank yous and relating what a great resource you are. Does anybody have any questions for Rees? Any questions that you'd like answered at this time?
Are you going to update your for a volume 3 or to include the new amenities?
Well, you know, that's a good question, Jane. I've been trying to do some of that through the Hiking Humboldt. There is a blog we maintain based on that. I've been trying to do that. I published it through Backcountry Press, and I should say that all of my earnings from that book have gone towards the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. So if you buy that book from many of the local outlets, $1 of it will go to me and on to the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. At this point, I think they did a final printing. I don't know whether they will, in the near term, support redoing the a second or third edition of the book, but I think if there's enough demand, there'll always be somebody interested in doing an updated version.
Well, we only lost 20 people, so don't worry too much.
Well, thank you all for bearing with me, and get out there, take advantage of our wonderful, wonderful hikes and beaches and mountains and forests and redwoods and rivers, and stay safe.
And I want to thank you all. That's fantastic. You've done a fabulous job, Rees, with this, and it's wonderful to be able to share it with everyone. And we want to tell you about next week's presentation.
Sorry about that. Oops.
Which is on dementia and diet. And that's basically a discussion of learning about dementia, the pathophysiology of dementia, and how diet affects our potential for dementia, or how you can avoid it.
Exercise being one of those things.
Pardon me?
Exercise being one of those things.
Exercise is the top one.
Yeah.
Actually, and then I think diet. And avoiding toxins helps too, if you can manage to do that. Just don't breathe the air, right?
All right,
thanks so much, Rees.
You bet.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
for staying connected, and we look forward to seeing you at the next presentation.
Take care.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.